You're listening to iFanboy Pick of the Week, episode 962. My name is Conor Kilpatrick, and this is my co-host, Josh Flanagan.
Hi there.
And welcome to iFanboy 2025. It's our 20th year doing this show and our 25th year of doing iFanboy. And that means every week for 25 weeks, one of us has picked the book they like the best from their stack of comics. We call that book the Pick of the Week. Even on the fifth week, we still got to do it. We can't get out of it, no matter what comes out. We'll talk about that book, the other books of the week, the Patron Pick listener mail will be fun. And you got a spoiler warning coming at you right now. Exercise some caution this week. Josh, you had the pick.
It wasn't that bad. It was. Like it wasn't so few books that there wasn't anything. Right. And I cleared out the backlog this week, so I still managed to have a few extras.
More books came out than I feared would come out, which was good.
And because of some technical nonsense, I didn't get to Redcoat number 9. I thought, well, I guess it's not out. And you said, yes, it is out. And I was like, oh, that explains why it's on my list. And I went and I found it. It was one of the last things I read. And prior to reading that, so it was like it wasn't the last book, but it was at the time. I had nothing. I was like, I don't know what to make pick again. Like there's some books I liked, but I have nothing new to say about them that we hadn't said before. And forgive me, was the last one pick of the week for you, or did we just really like it?
Not the last one. I think it was 7. The Death of Einstein was the pick of the week.
Yeah.
It was 7, I think.
Okay, so but it was pick of the week. It wasn't just us really.
No, there was a pick of the week. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, okay. So I guess this is sort of similar in a way.
Yeah, it was 7. So 7 was pick of the week.
Yeah, so number 9 is sort of it's a buddy tale of our friend Simon Pure, though he's anything but, as we'll come to know, which he says you don't get a lot of comic book taglines these days. So he's got one of those in there, and this is about his Sat's friendship with Johnny Appleseed, and it's the traditional version of Johnny Appleseed with a pot on his head and no shoes. And they became friends at some point, and they meet up every single year to make sure that they maintain their relationship. And the way it goes is that Johnny Appleseed is kind of a pure good guy. He's like the best guy, and he senses magic. So he meets Simon at some point, and he's like, "You've got some magic going on about you," and they strike up a kinship. And of course, as we've sort of gone through this over and over, is that Simon has convinced himself that he's a piece of shit. He acts like it. He's convinced he is. He doesn't do the right thing. But honestly, it's written quite deftly in the fact that we're giving a lot of opportunities to say that, like, he just can't get over himself to a certain extent. And he wants to feel guilty. And so he acts accordingly. And, Einstein and now Johnny Appleseed, whose name Jonathan Chapman, I think it is. We have a big sculpture of Johnny Appleseed at the local library here.
Yeah, with the pot on his head.
Now that I've seen this, now I can't remember if that's the case. I believe so. He's a crouching in that one. It kind of looks like a Rodin. Anyway, and in this, basically they meet and they're friendly together. They drink what is the best hard cider ever made. They sit around all night, and it's funny because Johnny's he's like a really good guy, but he's a fun dude to hang out with.
He's like a fun hippie dude.
A joke. Yeah. And he keeps trying to say, I know that you say you're not a good dude, but I like you, and that's sort of this theme that goes through the whole thing. And as they sort of explore that, the little adventure here that happens is that, trying to remember exactly how it happened. So at the beginning, something big has ripped through the woods and they're chasing it. Then we have the flashback explain everything that's going on. And what happened was, what did Johnny tried to put Simon's magic in an apple, and that caused and it didn't work the way it was supposed to. It made the apple get really, really big. And as such, there was a worm in said apple, a gigantic, disgusting earthworm. It's one of those things, like, they're not so bad in tiny size, but when you magnify them,
they become a sandworm from Dune.
It's horrifying. Yeah. And it's, ripping through the woods, and they have to save it. There's also there's a morality tale where a wealthy person has destroyed a town. I don't remember if it was for spite or because he could make more money out of it, but the stories they go to avenge, or well, that how they avenge the guy, whether they should or not, whether they should kill him. You know, Johnny doesn't want to do the thing. Simon's like, let's kick his ass, and they come up with a plan that sort of helps both of them. You know, it was a fun buddy story. I liked I really like the character Simon, who at first was very like at first I was like, I don't know how you're gonna maintain this for very long because he's kind of shitty, and that's not really it's fun for a little bit, but now they're doing like a long-term character piece on this character who is really interesting because he's ageless and he's immortal and he's been alive for hundreds of years. His character development is quite slow. And there's a bit in this where basically the metaphor at the end, the great moral of it is like, yep, sometimes things take a really long time to ripen and you're still working. I was like, oh, that's pretty good. Like, this is a fable, you know, it's just like a modern fable. And I'm continually amazed by what Jeff Johns has in like this phase of him is kind of from out of nowhere and is recognizable to his superhero work, but we just never saw anything like this for years and years and years and years. And it's really interesting because all the books are very different. And then I will make one last point, and I've been talking a long time. This is just fantastic, Brian Hitch.
It really is. It looks really. I mean, it's very recognizably Brian Hitch. But there's not a superhero inside. Yes, you could make a case that Redcoat is a superhero by definition. He wears a costume. He has superpowers. But you know, they're basically running around. You know, just a regular. Other than the giant sandworm, they're just people.
Yeah,
and it's so really gets to flex muscles that he doesn't normally flex in comics, and it's really nice to look at.
but all the same strengths are there. So like there's a double page spread of sort of the worm coming at you. The perspective is awesome. You know, the bodies are flying around in the middle of it.
It is gross.
You know, it's totally gross, but it is. I think for a little while maybe it seemed like Brian Hitch was losing a step, and I'm loath to say that, but I think that, you know, whatever reason, maybe the work or just what he was trying to do or whatever, but this looks as good as anything he's ever done. I think Brian Hitch needs an inker. I think that he benefits very greatly from. We've talked about this obviously, and here is Andrew Curry on inks. You know, the Brad Anderson, the sort of standard bearer for DC Comics coloring for a very long time. It's gorgeous. There's another shot of the tree growing up from the ground, and Simon's like hanging off the one branch upside down, and there's apples. It was just like, it's great. Like, he's so good at scale and at putting huge things in a shot and making everything look you know, appropriately grandiose or tiny as it needs to be. Great colors to this whole thing. It's just a really good issue.
So the first 7 issues of this book, we had basically Redcoat's team up adventures with Albert Einstein, teenage Albert Einstein, and we really liked it. But we also like, what is this book? I think this is the first issue where you really understand what this book actually is. Which I
think that's right.
It's 2 things. One, it's sort of an adventure through the myths and legends of the United States.
Yes.
Because the next issue is Annie Oakley. Like,
and we're moving forward. We're moving forward in time.
We're bouncing back and forth. In the last issue, he was in the more modern times.
You're right.
Next issue is Annie Oakley. Like, these are real people, but also sort of the myths and legends of the U.S. So that's part of it. The other part of it is clearly now the redemption of Redcoat, because here, as you said, you know, Einstein said, "No, you're a good person." Here, Johnny Appleseed says it, and we get a little bit of an idea of why he thinks that. He talks about his upbringing. I think wasn't he orphaned and he raised in a terrible household?
Yeah.
And so now we get a sense, oh, okay, there's a reason why he has no self-esteem, and there's a reason why he thinks he's a bad guy. And so my assumption, and what it seems to be, is this book is now 2 things. It's a, you know, trip through American history, and also this guy trying to find himself and realize he's not as bad as his terrible foster parents made him believe he was. And so it's very good. It's a very good,
you know, right away when, you know, early on when Albert Einstein showed up, you know, and I was like, oh, this is what this is going to be. You know, these are going to be historical or mythological figures. I got to be honest. I read enough of this. I even went to the Wikipedia page. I can't ever quite remember if Johnny Appleseed is based on a real person or not. There's a little like, I actually read his entry, his informational entry at the end of this, and I was like, wait, so is this the canon of this book or real? I don't know. But
you live in a town where there's a statue. You don't know?
I didn't read the little thing on it. I literally
need
just
to.
saw that the other day, and I was like, "Oh, wow, what a coincidence! Would have
Yeah,
been
he was a
serendipity in that
person.
way. Yeah, I think so. He's got a
He was
real
born in
name.
Leominster, Massachusetts. He was the second child of Nathaniel and Elizabeth Chapman.
If I may, sir, that's
Yeah,
Leominster.
yeah. You people have a real problem with letters.
It's
Uh,
Leominster.
he
It's
was just
Leominster. It's Worcester. It's Haverhill.
he was a
It's Peabody.
conservationist and a nurse. He he was a
Mhm.
nursery man. Doesn't make
I'm
any
an
sense,
oil
but that's what
man.
they call him. That in this
I'm a
Wikipedia.
nursery man.
In the book, in this issue, he says he convinced George Washington not to make the basically official fruit of the United States a cherry, because we're all about apple pie and apple trees, and George wanted cherries and cherry pie. So I liked it. I thought this was fun. I thought a great single issue story.
Yes.
It had a
Yes.
lot of character development. It had a out of nowhere crazy adventure. It had a little bit of crime they had to deal with. Who would have thought that the big sort of wow moment was a giant apple? But it was, and you know what? It's a drawing of an apple. I can tell it's supposed to be giant.
Yeah.
He does a good job of making it just slightly too big for the frame, so it fills the frame, but also extends past it. So and then even without seeing the tiny man in the frame, it's still you have the sense this is a giant apple.
I would
One
say,
big
like,
apple.
at
It's one
first,
big
my
Twinkie.
thought was, this is a really weird book for Brian Hitch to do. And the more that we go on, the more that I'm realizing that Brian Hitch is that really the secret ingredient that makes this work.
Totally.
I think if there's a lot of other artists that I would have probably chosen to be on it that were not as good of an idea as this, if that
He's
makes
great.
sense. He is great.
We forgot that he's great. He's great.
Yeah. Still great.
Still great.
Yep.
Absolutely. So the rundown this week's a little bit odd, but it is what it is. Let's move on to the next book on the list, which I'm slowly opening.
It's Lex Luthor Special #1 from the man at the helm of the Superman area of DC Comics, Joshua Williamson.
What month is it? February? No, it's January.
29th. It's February 20 or January
I don't
29th.
know what's happening. Everything
okay.
closed on me. So here's my question
mhm.
about Superman Lex Luthor Special #1. Why wasn't this just another issue of Superman? It seemed like it should have been another issue of Superman.
Well,
It had important developments in the characters of the book. If
It
you
did.
skip this because you don't read extraneous specials, you're going to be real surprised next time you see Lex Luthor. I just felt like I liked this issue a lot, and I closed it. And I thought this should have just been Superman 23 or whatever number they're at, because it's important to the story.
Well, two things about that. One is, when I look at these extraneous specials that are in the middle of something that I know I'm enjoying, I'll look and I'll go, oh, it's the same writer as the main book, so it's probably worth reading, or it's
Mhm.
somebody's involved with it. One. Two, I think that as a comic book writer, Williamson is good enough that when he puts it in the main book, you're still going to know what happens. This is just backstory on it. I think there's a lot of people who wouldn't, but this is a dyed-in-the-wool superhero comic book kind of person, and like that's a thing you do. Like I think he knows the difference, so I'd be trusting him. I had the same thought, but I think there's lots of ways. I mean, it's not like we didn't know the turn was coming, going, or the shoe was going to.
Oh,
drop
totally.
at
But
some
still,
point.
like this was like,
Mhm.
yeah, you can say this issue is all about Lex and the other parts of the story aren't moving forward. That's totally fine. These things used to happen in the main book itself, and especially a character piece of someone who's as important as Lex Luthor. But that aside, and Lex Luthor's magical disappearing, reappearing chocolate on his face aside, because he gets chocolate thrown in his face, and then the next page it's totally gone. The next page is back. I liked that a lot. So he's in the park with Mercy. They're on like a little date, and people recognize him, and they were very rightly throw ice cream in his face and yell at him. He should be in jail, and et cetera, et cetera. And Superman shows up and says, "Leave him alone." They go, "Sorry, Superman." I just thought that was, I thought that was sweet. The lot of flashbacks to a very sort of Smallville-esque background for him. Not entirely. This Lionel's a much more abusive person than the one in the TV show, but very much of that vein. You'll recognize even the design of Lionel. But I go back and forth on how tied in I like Lex to be to Superman's origin, not his origin, but his young days. Because in the Silver Age he was from Smallville, and then they sort of got rid of that in the Bronze, and and
I don't
modern
like
age.
that at all. I don't think he need because he'd know exactly who Clark was before. I
Right.
mean, and sometimes he does and sometimes he doesn't. But I also I really like the flexibility of the character. He's what you need him to be.
Yeah.
Joker's that way too.
Yeah.
You can tell one kind of story in one thing, and then the next one you're like, it's a little different. Who cares?
But I really like the ending where he made this crazy device that really scared the hell out of his father, only because he could make this device, and it revealed his father's jealousies, and he goes out in the field and turns it on. It plays this music over the radio waves, and it's the only thing that will soothe a crying baby Clark. I like that bit a lot. Like, he's not trying to do it; he just did it by accident, and he doesn't know he did it. And that was nice. And then he sort of does it again with Clark and Lois, where he starts playing his music again. So now he's remembering who he is. It was good. Was it the best Superman comic I've ever read? No, but I thought it was really solid. And I thought the Eddie Barrows art, who I always enjoy, was really strong. And
I liked Eddie Barrows, but I think that a lot of it was what was it, Aber Ferreira?
Yeah, he did a lot of the middle stuff.
A little more like almost like a Richard Corbin kind of. Like, I feel like if you look at the last couple pages, I don't know if that's Eddie Barrows or not, but those sort of lines don't look like him.
The last couple are definitely Eddie Barrows. The Superman, Superwoman stuff is Eddie Barrows.
Is it?
Yeah.
That's a little, because I tend to think if you look on like the
wait, no, you're right. That's not him.
Yeah, but like the first or second page in the big fight, like there's this shot of Superman, and I was like, that chest is not that anatomy is bad.
The shot of him flying, that's Eddie Barrows. If you look at Mr. Terrific, those are the teethy smiles he draws. But I think the next pages aren't. I don't know. It's hard to tell. They're very similar styles.
Yeah, but I like the way that the Ferreira stuff is finished is really kind of delicate and nice, and I like that shading and stuff that he uses. Maybe it was like a collaboration. Like, it doesn't say who's inking or what, so maybe like the finishes on some of it were Ferreira. Look at those teeth. I don't think I ever noticed that. Yeah, now I'm never gonna not see them.
That's how you know it's Eddie Barrows. He does those teethy grins.
He does a full trunk and a long torso. This guy.
I don't know. If you're a Superman reader and you skip this one, I mean, you can skip it, but I thought it was a good issue for what it was. So
it's good. We
got more comics to talk about. We'll be back right after this. West Coast Avengers #3. Jerry Duggan, Danny Kim. We haven't talked about this book. This was another book that came out while you were not in the show.
Did you talk about it then?
I talked about it with Ryan.
Okay, so we haven't talked about it.
You and I haven't talked about it.
Fair. I feel like I've been bit by West Coast Avengers a lot in the past number of years. Yeah. And so even now when an issue comes out, I'm like, wait, do I like this or not? Like, I can't quite remember. And then I go, hey, it's Jerry Duggan. I want to give it a shot. And I kind of like it. That's kind of what I feel. We are definitely doing now, not really like a legacy of Ultron, but we are definitely doing the extended, here's what Ultron's been the whole time thing, and it's changing it a little bit, which is like,
I don't think this is a very good book.
Is it not?
I don't think it is. I'm reading it. I mean, they're getting me with Iron Man wearing the silver. The not my favorite, but one of my favorite armors. And other than that, I mean, I think one thing Ryan and I said is too many guys is too many Iron Men and Ultra. Like, the team is 3/4 people in armored suits or armored people. Don't like that. I don't like this Firestar, who's for some reason an asshole. It's like, what?
She went through some shit.
I know, but they're making all the mutants unlikable assholes.
Yeah.
And then Spider-Woman's cool, but she's hardly doing anything. I don't know. I think the mix. I don't like this villain guy being on the team. I don't like this character.
Yeah, I don't either. He's my like. It's all like the formula makes sense. We've seen it a lot before. Like, and it even like they justified it. Like, oh, he's on a work release program. We can bring him in. But it keeps making me think. I was like, is this Thunderbolts? I keep thinking it's a Thunderbolts book.
There's no lack of Avengers to have on your team. Why you need to bring in a bag? I also I'm not a huge fan of the Danny Kim art. I don't think it's very good. I think it looks like at times bad Chaykin.
It seems like in this issue it's inconsistent.
There's foreshortening problems.
There's a shot where it's right near the beginning where like it's the hero shot the Avengers and it's assemble, like somebody else Avengers and the next Avengers assemble, you turn.
Yep.
And for some reason they're all it's black behind them all.
Yeah, I'm looking at it.
And that was really jarring, and also like it just looks kind of unfinished, especially compared to the rest of the art in the book. Like it's supposed to be the hero shot, and it's very not dynamic.
Yeah, they're all in strange poses. I mean, I like the drawing of Spider-Woman, but the rest.
Mhm.
But if you turn to the very next page, and if you look at the second panel, whatever this fucking guy's name is, look at his arms. This is like, the foreshortening is an issue. That's what I'm looking at. It looks like bad shaking. That guy.
It's not. And then the Ultron's kind of like the anatomy's not right. Everybody looks really, really stiff.
Yeah.
This isn't being treated like a top tier book, and nor should it. But maybe either, I don't know, like maybe somebody with a little more of a indie bent, like just a little looser, a little more cartoony, I guess. Or, I mean, I think that it'd be a weird book because it's supposed to sort of feel off kilter. So it's a weird book if it's like, like a Jim Lee knockoff or something. Right. Then again, it was John Byrne's book. And that's what everyone who's working in comics now who works on West Coast Avengers grew up with the John Byrne book. They love it. You can tell that this is like Jerry Duggan, who's basically our age.
Oh, totally.
Same kind of deal. Like he's got the silver Iron Man. Like I know what he likes. And yeah, this art.
I mean, this issue it explained how there are many Ultrons and what's happening, and I get it. But I wish there was another move besides making the villain a hero in Marvel. It's a move they do a lot.
I did like. I mean, it's Jerry Duggan. Like there's a lot to like. I did like the fact that we've got this sort of new Illuminati thing.
Yep.
We're just sort of finding out about. I think that
we've seen them before, but it's been a long time.
Well, I think that that's not a good drawing of Tony Stark.
It's not. The art's not good.
I think that the Church of Ultron, it's a good idea. It's a scary idea. Like it seems formidable. But at the same time, if you've also got all these other Ultri,
right?
Like you don't need that. This part is good, or maybe you reveal that later, or so. I don't know. Like it's too much. Like let's focus on this thing that we're having instead of all of a sudden we know, oh, this is what's been happening with Ultron the whole time. And then is the good Ultron there? He's like, oh, I'm going to join them. And I was like, are you want to take him down? Is he lying? That wasn't clear.
Yeah. I just don't think, I don't think the premise is very strong.
Here's the question.
It's annoying.
Well, also that this doesn't seem to be the same Tony Stark. I keep thinking that Tony Stark isn't in this. I was like, was that Rhodey? Because the Tony Stark in the Iron Man book right now ain't this guy.
Yeah.
He doesn't have this suit.
The nature of team books.
Yeah, but whatever. I'm gonna read the next one.
Yeah,
I agree with everything you said. I'm gonna read it.
That's exactly it, because I like 100% what you said is everyone our age grew up with that awesome West Coast Avengers comic. So every time there's a West Coast Avengers book, I buy it. And every time there's a West Coast Avengers book, I read it. I don't think it's very good, but I'm gonna keep doing it.
You can do. You gotta do it.
I'm part of the problem.
That's what I've been saying all along.
I've always been part of the problem,
but not necessarily in that context.
No, there's many reasons why I'm part of the problem, many problems. So, I finished the season's #1, which was a double-sized issue from Rick Remender and Paul Azaceta, who we just love.
Yes,
and I thought to myself, if you took the names off this book and you put a gun to my head and the head of all of my loved ones, I would never be able to pull Rick Remender's name out of the hat for this issue. I thought it was so interesting because it was so not a Remender book. And then I got to the little essay where he says during the low point of the quarantine, he decided he wanted to do something light and fun in the vein of Tintin. And I went, well, you nailed it.
Yes.
I thought, honestly, this was my pick of the week. If I'd had the pick of the week, this would have been it. I thought it was so unlike him. It was basically an extended Disney movie opening where this girl is chasing a letter. She's a courier and she delivers letters, and this one's for her. And through a series of comical and unbelievable, but believable in this context. Events like the wind keeps blowing, or people keep stepping on it, sticks to their feet, kind of like the opening of Superman 3, where all those events happen to cause mayhem in the city. It was very much like that. I remember I was like, what am I reading? Because I expect a certain ethos from a Remender book, and this is not a complaint. But I was like, I don't understand what's happening at all. I'm confused. Like, this is sort of joyful and colorful and light, and I don't understand.
It's actually really light for Paul Azaceta as well.
Yes.
Because if you look at anything he's ever done, like, it's very ink heavy. It's very dark. He did that Demon book with Kirkman forever,
Right.
and in this, like, went real thin on the lines.
They're very loose and sketchy.
It's very pastel.
Yeah.
In color.
Now that doesn't mean there's not a hint of, if not darkness, there's obviously villainy. There's these creepy clown people that are coming for her sisters. Her name is she's Summer.
They're all like season names, right?
Yeah, it's like Summer, Winter, Autumn, and Sarah. I don't know, something. They're all seasons.
Sarah's my favorite season.
Yeah. Whatever it is, whatever her name is. I'm trying to find someone say her name out loud, but I'm not seeing it. And so clearly there's a threat. One of her sisters writes, the letter comes from one of her sisters who warns her of the threat, which she doesn't get to the very end. I mean, I just thought this is like, if you're gonna do, I'm not saying this is an all ages book, but if you're gonna do like an all ages Tintin style adventure, I thought they really nailed the tone. They nailed the fun. It's a beautiful looking book. I don't want to just call out Paul's setup, but Mateus Lopes does a terrific job, or Lopez.
Probably.
Ross Wooten. It's a gorgeous looking book, and just so unlike Remender. It's really incredible.
I didn't care for it. I didn't. Again, I don't think it was bad. I didn't quite know what I was reading, and I realized, like, oh, I'm watching this like adventure through the city trying to catch a letter, and it's really cool and it looks great or whatever. But like, I don't know, I had no sense of who I was looking for at, and so I feel like I tend to need that hook. I'm looking for a story, and I didn't know what it was yet. It feels like this is the kind of thing that I think it's a good experiment, but I don't think it worked on me. Maybe you do this kind of thing later, but no, I mean, like, it's not. I don't think it's
you gotta open the story with this. You can't have this happen later.
No, I get it, but usually, like, whatever, when they get to like issue 7 is when they do their weird experimental issue, like Mythic Quest. But I don't know, like, at the end of the day, I was like, I'm not really sure what I just read. And when I saw at the end we're making it like Tintin, I was like, okay, that's exactly, you were right. Like, you were absolutely right about that. I think it was done really well. It's just ultimately I don't know what the hook was that I would want to read more. It's not really a criticism. It was just like, all right, cool.
Not your tone.
No, or if it is, I don't know it yet. I mean, I don't know what the story is. There's some danger. Okay, like, I don't know. And again, this is the same thing. Like, okay, look at the creators on this. I just told you I didn't care for it. When I got to it, I was like, boy, I'm gonna read the next one. Like, I trust them. It'd be fine. But in terms of like hooking me, I didn't feel hooked. Like, if you asked me what this was about, I would tell you it was about chasing an envelope through the streets during a parade, which is
that's what it was about.
Yeah, I know.
It was great.
Which isn't necessarily the most compelling, but
yeah, it just depends what you're looking for.
Right.
And he's, I thought the essay was very interesting about how he's growing and learning as a creator to become less. It's the same thing we used to talk about with Darwin Cook, like less is more. Strip it down.
No, and I think that's really good.
Yeah.
Spring.
Her name is Spring.
Spring.
Yeah.
And she's jumping all over the place.
And I mean, he did. I mean, he's not wrong. He's like, by the part of the thing they're doing here is they're showing you the world. They're showing you the people in the town. They're showing you what the town is like.
Also, at the beginning, some shit went down.
Yeah. So, I loved it, but
that's great.
Not everyone needs to. Great cover. Cover is darker than the issue itself, but I think it's gonna get a little dark. I mean, look at those clowns are creepy. These clowns are creepier. So, I mean, it is what it is.
It's because they're lengthy. They're tall lankiness.
Creepy clouds.
Yeah, it's no good.
Yep.
So I will be talking now about Patron and the other ways that you can help us. And I don't remember how I'm supposed to do this. So you do that part and I'll talk.
All right.
There we go. We are a listener supported situation around here. You can directly support the show and become part of a large community on Discord and Facebook over at patreon.com/ifanboy. You get to vote for the patron pick. You get a patron power live on the show. You get to join the monthly patron hangout. $10 or higher a month, you get an ad-free version of the show. Plus, you get the show a day early on Saturdays, and you get access to the iFanboy after show on Sundays, which is where Connor and I, and I guess whoever else is with us, we'll talk about all the books that didn't make the rundown. We don't know. It could be anything. That's the basis of it, but we don't know. You don't know.
There will come a show where there will be nothing to talk about, and we'll.
Yeah, it was almost this week, but we kind of pulled out of it. Yeah. There's a discount if you sign up for a full year, and you can now send or receive gift memberships. Go to patreon.com/ifanboy/gift for more. ifanboy.threadless.com, our merch store where we have 20 designs on t-shirts and more. We have 7 new designs on the way. Wait, no, we have 7.
We added 7 new
They
designs.
added them.
Yeah.
I was looking for what I said, and it was wrong. And there's more on the way. There's the words. In 2025, you can go to ifanboy.com/support for direct donations via PayPal. You can go to ifanboy.com/Amazon. There's a general shopping link, affiliate link. Use that if you're going to buy stuff and you like us and we get a cut. Doesn't hurt you at all. Just helps. That's all it does. And then there's bookshop.org is an aggregator of local bookstores, so you can order books from local bookstores who are valuable and wonderful institutions, and this can help them. Those links will be there on the website in the places where we can put them.
I think they just added ebooks this week.
Really?
Yeah.
Pretty good stuff.
That was a big thing. Let's move on to X-Men number 10.
Man and X-Men. No.
Jed MacKay, Netho Diaz. I like this. This continues to be the best X-Men book in my opinion. It seems to be you've talked about this before. It seems to be a book all about rehabilitating Scott Summers' image because he's awesome in this book.
He is, but he is also I don't know, like it feels like this might have been my pick of the week if I hadn't gone this way. I consider
you're in your X-Men phase. You're in your X-Men.
No, I think that's what it is that I think after a long time of not knowing what to do with Scott Summers, they're nailing down something. And this isn't the same old like kid version. It's sort of reconciling the more extreme pro-mutant thing that sort of turned him into a terrorist and almost a bad guy, and sort of brought it back to be like, no, I'm fighting for my people. That's what I do. Kind of a freedom fighter. This is a real kind of an edgy, like he's super cool. And he talks straight up to the bad guy, and the bad guy in this is the U.S. government. And that was really interesting too. Like he's basically threatening, in the eyes of a government and an administration, this guy would be a terrorist. Yep. But he used that really cool device of talking about that Shakespeare line, like whatever it is you do to me, I learn from that, and I will do back to you better. And he just comes off as being a complete, badass with cool language against this guy who looks like an asshole YouTuber. And ironic.
Sadly, I probably watched his YouTube video about how to shape your beard.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I can't pull that mustache thing off, but you got to give him credit for the rest of it. It's a nice beard. It is a drawing, which does help.
Absolutely. That does help.
Artists rarely take the time to draw in patchiness.
He didn't mention that in his YouTube video.
No. I liked it, and I think that is the story, is that I haven't read Cyclops all that much, but every time I haven't known what the hell he was, and in this book I know what he is, and it's interesting.
It's very good. I don't know why we're talking about SilverHawks number 1 from Dynamite, Ed Brisson, George Cambadais. I
don't know.
Right, Jeff. You know what I love about going to Dark Horse? I mean, about Dynamite. It's where I go to find out names of creators I've never heard of before, and had no idea we're working in comics.
Yeah, and you may keep seeing him, you may not.
I don't even mean just the artist. I mean the whole team. Anyway, not Ed Brisson, everybody else. You weren't a SilverHawks. I mean, our our
I mean,
partner, co-founder of F, Ron, was a huge SilverHawks guy, to the point where he still looks at SilverHawks toys now as an adult.
I liked it. Like, I had a couple of the toys or whatever, but
Yeah.
I couldn't tell you a thing about it. It was one of
Same.
those shows, like, I was like, "I think this is really cool," but I feel like it didn't air very often, and I didn't really get much of a chance to get my hands around it, if
I
that makes
certainly
sense.
watched it. I certainly liked it, and I have a distinct memory of going shopping for SilverHawks figures
Yeah.
when they
I
first
think they
came
were
out.
this was like the, a lot of times back then, there'd be a cartoon, like, and then, like, a cartoon that was kind of the same thing that they made alongside it. So this was at the same time as Thundercats, which was a big hit. This was, like, the other one they made.
Right, I
That was
prefer Thundercats, but
And I prefer this because I always like the alternate thing because that's what I'm like. But I feel like they didn't make much of it, or it wasn't on very long because I didn't get much exposure to it. So I don't remember.
uh,
I don't know. This is
I'm
just my
curious.
my instinct.
That's the thing. There was a lot of these kind of shows when we were kids in the
Mhm,
80s. I liked it, but I don't remember a thing about it. Like, I remember what the
mhm.
story of Thundercats was and the characters and all that stuff, but
Yeah. Yeah, I don't
the
remember the story. The designs are awesome. Really, that's the thing. I think the designs are really cool. That's what I remember about it. So you tell me early in the week, this was an early contender for Patron Pick. This
no, no,
was
no, 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 it wasn't ever a
No,
contender.
it wasn't. You're right.
It
You're right.
was something that the patrons were talking about as possibly voting for.
Okay. Which didn't pan out. But
Interesting. So there was only okay. You're not totally wrong. There was only 65 episodes of SilverHawks, and
compared to how many of Thundercats?
I don't know. Let's see. It came out in 1986, and now
So 9 years old.
Thundercats in '85 was the year before. 130 episodes, 4 seasons.
It stuck around longer.
Only 1 season of SilverHawks.
Yeah.
65 episodes.
The
65
second season of
episodes
G.I.
season.
Joe's like that. So, like, I was like, I'll take a look at it. And then I saw Ed Brisson as the writer on it. And I was like, okay, I'm now going to give it a chance. Before I was like, I might end up just flipping through it. And because I don't remember anything about it, I didn't know what it was. I wasn't sure where they were picking it up. So anyway, the point is, what we have here is it's been a while, and the SilverHawks, who you know or may not quite remember, are old, and they are.
That was unexpected.
But this is my point. Like, it was much better, or at least it was not what I expected, and it wasn't like the dark version of it, but they were like, all right, let's make it kind of real and make it into a drama. And these people are old, and the bad guy got out. Go.
I thought this was really bad. I appreciate the unexpectedness of it. I did appreciate it was like the characters from the show were basically had retired. The last one was about to retire, but then they had to bring him back out of retirement, which I like that device. But
Danny Glovered him.
It felt he was younger than we are right now in that movie. It felt very much like a book for the super fan because they gave you no help whatsoever.
Agree.
And so I was a super fan in 1986, but that was a long time ago. I couldn't tell you the name of any of these characters. I couldn't tell you, having read the book, their names. I couldn't tell you what the world is like, what these people do, why they're special. They didn't really lay any track to make you care about what was happening. Or why it was a big deal that the villain got out of prison. Like, what was his deal? Like, they didn't tell you enough to care. They were banking on the fact that you, now 48-year-old man, remember these things.
Not for a month, bitch.
I'm just saying, I don't remember, and I'm not 48, but they're banking on some other people who were 48, and like our friend Ron, who remember these things, but I didn't, and so I did not like it because I didn't know what was happening.
I agree with you, and I don't think it gave you very much. And it was more that I respected the approach. I was like, you're gonna go like this. All right. If they did this with a G.I. Joe comic, I'd be like, let's go.
That's because we know it. And that's the biased nature of this. Is like, because we know it, it's fine. But if we don't know it, then we're just like, what am I doing with this? I
thought the art was correct for what they were doing here also. Like, it's not amazing, but I think it's sort of right between cartooniness and the sort of drama thing they're going for. Although a lot of stuff looked cool, it was difficult to make the villains look like they fit in this world because the guy's name is Molecular and he looks like a big piece of buttered popcorn. But
listen, man, it was the 80s. It was a time. It was a time of cheer.
It was interesting. I'm not going to keep reading it.
We got to take one more quick break. We'll be back in a moment with more comics. Green Lantern number 19. Jeremy Adams, Fernando Bessarn, and Eau Claire Albert on art. I just want to mention
those are some classic names for Green Lantern.
Yes. So last week we had the Green Lantern special, which sort of starts the new status quo in that book. They've got their rings back. They're back in charge. There isn't really a central power battery. The Guardians are not in charge. They're just sort of there as advisors. And so in this issue, well, two things. One, they like a strike force team breaks off to have an adventure, and I liked that a lot. So it was like Hal Jordan, Kyle Rayner, Connor Kent, and this Odyssey the Time Bandit, this woman who was at the science cells and has kind of got a crush on Connor. It's like a fun little mix of like, we're gonna go off on this ship and have an adventure, and I kind of like that. Like, get off and do something else. Why do I like it? Because I mentioned on one of our after shows how every issue of Daredevil for like 20 years has been about his crippling Catholic guilt. Mm-hmm. Every issue of Green Lantern is about the Spectrum. Every issue since since Jeff Johns wrote in the different colored lanterns. Every story has been about the Spectrum, including this one. I'm getting really emotional about it.
Looks like are you dying?
My throat got dry. And so I'm just like, come on, tell me something else that's happening. That's all I want to know. That's my brief spiel on that. But I did like it. I thought that the group was really fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they really did take over Green Lantern in that way.
Yep. We're moving on to another book.
Those are the books that we wanted to talk about.
We didn't have Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles on the list?
I think we did earlier, and then it came out.
I think I put it on the list. I think you might have taken it off.
You know what? I'm looking at my old script, not yours. So let's go back to it then. Like, that's what we do. We're light. We're loose.
Yep. I wanted to mention this Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles number 6 because it's the first issue with the new regular artist, Juan Ferreira. That's right. I like this a lot. I thought he's a great pick for this. I mean, we like his stuff, but really interesting dynamic layouts. I love the texture. He draws that really creepy, skinny Donatello.
Yeah, that was
really well.
Yeah.
I thought the character work was excellent. Yes, am I ready to get beyond them all hating each other and fighting each other? 100%. Yes, absolutely. We're going to get there.
Hopefully, this was the climax of that.
I don't think they're over it, but they're going to get there.
But we should start healing. I don't want to do a whole other issue of them hating each other. It's too.
It was just
shut up.
And it's Michelangelo and Raphael mostly, just the two of them fighting. But I really like that they're still brothers. So like when they realized Donatello was really hurting, they stopped fighting.
Yeah,
I like that a lot. He's gone a little crazy. He's talking to a dead rat, thinking it's Splinter. He's hearing voices. The whole town's against them. The hand has got the upper hand. Is the foot? The foot.
The foot.
I keep calling him the hand.
The hoof. The paw.
And then we have a little bit of April O'Neil and Casey Jones. I just thought this was a great issue of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I really did. I thought it was terrific.
You're right. It is. It's really well done. It's very much in the spirit of the original stuff, but done in Jason Aaron modern way. He's threading the needle really nicely. There's a shot on page 13, and it's Leo climbing up the side of a building. And
that was the one I was like, yes, he is great for this book.
Yeah, and you look down and you see the top of the panel. You're seeing the sidewalk, and then the 3 panels on the side are made up of the roof of the building.
Amazing.
It is beautiful. He does his original pages. He's drawing. This is on paper, as far as I know. He'll use the red and the white in the original sort of art. So like when you see like the motorcycle or whatever is down, you see those streaks. Those are usually on the board, and
painted
then the colorists, and the colorists will put the other stuff over it. I have a page of his from Thunderbolts King in Black on my wall over here. He's fantastic.
He really is. Like when I see his name, I get really excited. I just, they had that the whole gimmick where they had different artists for every issue, and they were all great in their different ways. But I'm so happy he's the regular guy. Like I know we talked up Burnham's issue a lot, and he would have been totally great as an ongoing artist. But I think Juan Ferreira brings this really interesting, unusual energy to this book. that it really needs to have.
Mhm.
And it's fun. I don't want them to hate each other, but they won't. They won't
No,
forever.
it's good. It's quite
There you
nice.
go. Yeah. So there you go. Those are the books we wanted to talk about. But at patreon.com/iFanboy, every patron gets to vote to add a book to the rundown. The voting opens on Wednesday. It closes on Thursday. And you get about 24 hours, a little bit more than 24 hours to vote. We thank every patron who votes. It's the more patrons vote, the better. Like this week, it was a neck and neck race between two books. The Specials was the second place book, which came in right behind Ice Cream Man, number 43. I think Ice Cream Man number 1 was a patron pick way back.
It may have been
43 months ago. But
if he's been that regular with an indie book for that long, he should get a special kind of Eisner. For
so
that, just that.
This was the special
perfect attendance award
issue in which it was oversized, and so W. Maxwell Prince is the writer on Ice Cream Man, and this also featured Grant Morrison, Matt Fraction, Kelly Sue DeConnick, Jeff Johns, Dennis Camp, Zoe Thorogood, Patton Oswalt, Jeff Lemire, Frank Barbieri, Martin Morazzo, Chris O'Halloran, and good old Neon. That was the full-on creative team, and they all did one-page horror stories.
Good old Neon is the letterer,
but he also wrote a page.
Oh, did he?
Yeah,
that's awesome. Good for him.
So
or her or it. I don't them.
Yes.
I don't know. I just
good old Neon did page 20, a taxonomy of old-timey diseases.
Oh, well, that makes sense.
So this was a series of one-page horror stories. I always love a zany experiment in comics. I thought this was a freaking nightmare. Oh, this was terrible.
Yeah. I wasn't gonna say it was terrible.
I know it was terrible. I think there was maybe 2 pages in here I thought were well done. And I think part of the problem is the modern writer can't do it. They can't do a one-page story. They don't have the tools. Seemingly, these are some of the best writers in comics. You know, in the Bronze Age, Detective Comics used to have a one-page mystery every issue where Jim Gordon solved the mystery one page, because back then they knew how to cram stuff into a page. Here, these felt like scenes. They felt like a written, like a illustrated poem.
Like
these weren't stories.
The camera on it and took them all. Yeah, they didn't have.
They
the
weren't
beginning,
stories.
middle, and end.
And it just like some of these, that's like, what did I just read after I finished a page? And I moved on to the next one. Now the good news is it did. You fly through it.
Sure.
But I mean, I don't know. There was one that Matt Fractions, but he didn't cheat, but he put a lot of panels in. He actually told something. I mean, there was one that was just the caption on a picture of the New York Times.
Yeah. I thought the Kelly Sue page, while not necessarily a story, was pretty good. The one about the recovering oxy addict, kind of had a story that went through it.
Some of them had stories, some of them did, but like one of them.
Well, Maxwell Prince wrote most of like the bulk, the plurality of them at least, and I think it was his experiment, so he knew how to do it. I think probably better than anyone. I do also think
I didn't like all right, explain to me the Kelly Sue DeConnick one, because I couldn't even make heads or tails of what I just read.
I don't remember now.
It was about the woman in the post office.
Must misuse one of the
buying getting the letter. Like, I don't even know what I was supposed to take away from that page. She's going to cancel her box. That was it.
Well, she's somebody else. She's not who she's not who people think she is. She's going to leave because she wants to. She can.
I don't know. It just didn't work. The only one that really did work was the Zoe Thorogood one she wrote and drew about her brother, her real life brother who passed away. That was the only one that felt like a complete story.
I really did like, both for the purposes of, I think it's a good idea for these kind of things if you want to do it, and also it makes it easier for me to do the script. Is this the same art? It was the regular series artist who did every page, like did them all. So I think for what's that person's name?
Was it Martin Morazzo?
Yeah. I thought that actually gave it a nice continuity, and also you got to see do kind of different kinds of things. Probably super fun for that. Probably super fun for that one artist to sort of do things differently. I think that I didn't like the first issue of this a long time ago, and since then we really like that one book about with the one issue stories about dad.
Haha.
Haha. Yeah.
The clown ones.
Yeah, and I've kept meaning to go back to this and check it out at some point, and I didn't really realize it was an anthology, but I also didn't realize it was like a horror anthology. I'm less interested in that.
Mhm.
And this didn't. I was like, all right, let's see what we got going on here.
Right.
And then I was like, this wasn't what I. This is what this was. This
I
wasn't
was-
what I wanted.
I was legitimately excited
Yeah.
because these are really great, talented people doing
Mhm.
this, and I like a artistic challenge, which is tell a story in one page. I just feel like most of them didn't, and that's my problem with it.
Yeah, I don't think it
So,
worked. I think it was a great
don't think it worked.
experiment.
Yeah.
I don't think it worked. And where it did, I mean, you make a good point, but where it did it, I didn't find it that compelling. And then sort of going from one thing to the next thing to the next thing, I just like I said this earlier. So it was like, what's the hook? What's going on here? I wasn't hooked. Been negative this week.
Well, so
Here
it's
we
fifth
are.
week. We don't have a lot of choices,
Mhm.
but this was not our choice. if it had been Patron Pick, I would have talked about it because it was so bad. I
Yeah.
thought. I don't know. I don't really have much more to say about it. It just, again, I applaud the effort. And I
Mhm.
applaud the idea. I applaud the trying something different, but the execution didn't
I think
work.
normally what you get an anthology and you expect, all right, a third of these are going to be pretty good. A third of them will be okay.
Sure.
A third will be forgettable. And like as we start talking about it, I was like, and I kept going back because the way it was done, I was like, well, wait, who wrote this? It's to go all the way back to the beginning and look
Yeah.
at the thing and then go back.
That's the
to
other thing. You know what? Put the creative team on the page.
Put the creative team on the page.
Put it on the. I did the same
put-
thing. I get to a page, I go scroll back. Okay, this is Jeff Johns. Back. I was just like,
Mhm.
just put the name, but put the title and by and the creative team on every page.
Listen, how much work did Grant Morrison put into that page?
The last one.
Man holds up razor with snail on it. Snail falls apart.
What was that story?
It's
It's not a
Kurtz.
story. It's not a story.
It's Kurtz from Apocalypse Now. So
It's just an image of a crazy person cutting a snail in half. That's
on a
it.
straight razor, and then
It's
he
no
says,
story.
"The horror." It's good design. It's
Kurtz.
good drawing.
It's a great drawing.
I'm gonna give the artist. I'm gonna
That
give
one has
Marazzo credit.
That one has Grant Morrison's name on the bottom. That's the only
because
one.
that was really your selling point. That's the second name on the cover after the author.
I don't know. I didn't like this.
All
Does
right.
not make me inclined to pick up any other ice cream man issues. That's for sure.
Haha would have. I still might try.
Haha was great.
I still
Was there
might-
a second one?
There was two
series we liked?
I think. Yeah, they were all
Haha
good.
was great.
I could try this. But
Haha was the one about clowns, and then there was one about death.
You're right.
Or the end. Was it called The End?
Something like that. Yeah, it
It
was
was all about things.
You're right.
Ending,
You're right.
like
You're right.
Relationships ending, the world ending.
Mhm.
Yeah, those are both terrific.
I mean, I gotta respect Prince.
Yeah,
not
sure.
just the artist, but
You got to respect all princes.
yeah, I did. I mean, even Machiavelli, that guy, he gets labeled as a bad guy, but he has some good ideas.
Right.
All right, ratings.
Ratings on Ice Cream Man, number 43 out of 5. 2. I think we have 3 2s in a row now.
I'm gonna go with a 2.3
Okay,
because I think that there's chutzpah involved.
sure.
I think I like the idea. I like that they went for it. I think the artist did a bang up job with what was a pretty difficult thing. I thought it looked good. Coloring was good.
Yeah.
But in terms of like making me want to read a comic book, did I have a good time reading it? No. Did I want to? Yes. And that disappointment is.
There was definitely disappointment for sure.
Yeah.
And that's part of my low grade was like I was very excited for it, and then it was
Mm-hmm.
like, nope.
Yeah.
So
Sticking with it.
no,
You up for 44?
no, I'm not. I'm not up for 44. I did read it before it was the pick. Now I knew it was in the running for it, but I was gonna read it regardless because of the experiment and the names. Regardless
Mm-hmm.
of if it had been gotten one patron vote or all of the votes, I was reading it no matter what.
I wouldn't have noticed it because I probably would just be like, I'm not reading that. But you mentioned what it was, and I thought, oh, that's interesting. I'll grab that too. So I'd read it ahead of time.
So there you go.
Mm-hmm.
That's the Patron Pick. Patreon.com/iFanboy. Every patron gets a vote to add a book to the rundown. We thank all the patrons who participate in the voting. Again, voting opens on Wednesdays. It closes on Thursdays. And we thank everyone who does so. It's the more patrons who vote, the more fun it is because more people's input gets in there and more books get thrown into the mix. Thrown in the little patron pick blender. Now every patron gets a vote, but if you're a patron at the $5 or higher level, you get a superpower live on the show. It's called the Patron Power. And this week, Josh is giving it out.
So that's not right. So Chad Daniel is an expert on anything that's been discontinued. Knows about everything that's been discontinued, canceled, taken out of circulation.
Okay.
He's baffled by anything current. Just can't understand the new stuff at all. But if it happened before, he's completely
Okay.
bit of a conceptual nightmare.
The world makes no sense to him unless it's been discontinued.
Yeah. So then he put it into context.
Is there an example you got on this?
So if you were to have him on here and be like, what can you tell me about SilverHawks? And you'd be like, okay, so here's the deal. This company did it. The idea came from so-and-so. There was this many episodes. Here were the things that were good about it. Here were the bad things about it. Here's how it worked in the context of media at the time. And you're like, okay, now can you tell me about Squid Game? And he'd be like, what?
So he's never even heard of it.
And I'm just talking about TV, but there would be other things. He might be heard of it or aware of it, just baffled, just doesn't understand anything about it. I see what that is. I don't know what that does, why it is. I can't get into it. As soon as it's been discontinued
or canceled, so discontinued isn't because that's more like for a product.
No, I use right. Well, there's lots of ways to use that, but like say for example, now you go into the supermarket now, right? Go in the supermarket, all the stuff on the shelves. I don't even know what to do with this. Do you still carry this? Like it's discontinued. That's right. Those particular taco meals that were heat up, you wanted to do them in the air fryer, and he understands things that have been discontinued,
so
canceled, taken away.
When he goes to the supermarket and all the non-discontinued food is there, he doesn't.
He has to get it because he's got to eat, but it's just a minefield.
He doesn't see blank shelves.
Nah, he just doesn't know anything about it. Doesn't know how to rate it. Can't rank it.
So he doesn't know if this is good or not. Are these chips good or are these chips good? He doesn't know.
Exactly.
I'm sorry.
He'd be like, it was good. Crystal Pepsi was quite.
He's all about New Coke.
New Coke. Tab.
That's interesting because what happens if something comes back? Because old Coke was gone, it was discontinued, and then it came back. So does that mean he knows about old Coke too? Original Coke?
I mean, the fact is, you're gonna have to put him in that situation to find out. We can't know. Okay. Maybe that's the singularity. Maybe that's dogs and cats living together. Maybe that blows up the. I don't know.
Thanks, Chad, for being a patron. Patreon.com/iFanboy is where he did it. He gave it the $5 higher level, and he got a patron power live on the show. I mean, good luck.
He knew everything about Around Comics. Then it came back, and he was like, "What is this?"
I'm very confused.
I don't know. Maybe he knows about it again.
Should we do an email?
Yeah, we should do an email.
At least one.
All right, let's go with yeah. Oh, here we go.
Let's read the email first.
Yeah, I'm still getting at this. If we have Greg M from Philadelphia, I don't know how to answer this. I'm just saying it right now, but that's why it's here. I've got Super Bowl fever. My beloved Philadelphia Eagles are back in the Super Bowl, which has me wondering which superhero would throw the best Super Bowl watch party? Who would make the best signature dip or appetizer? Who would only be watching for the commercials? Who would ruin their night with too many prop bets and parlays? I've been thinking about this since the Eagles won the NFC Championship game, and I got invited to 3 watch parties. I don't care about the Eagles, but I do want to say go Birds because I think it's fun to say. Like Roll Tide, go Birds, these kinds of things. Yeah, oh yeah, super. I mean, the fact is, if he goes to parties and he acts like the guy who wrote this amazing and completely unheard of question, I would invite him too.
Who throws the best watch party? I mean, I gotta feel like it's a Ben Grimm scenario.
Ooh.
He's everybody's buddy. He likes people around. He likes hanging with the guys and the girls. Mm-hmm. But he likes those poker nights. So he's already doing that stuff. He's already got the infrastructure.
I mean, it's hard to go wrong with Tony Stark, although it might be a little earlier dry affair. Yes. But at the same time, there's segways you can ride from room to room, and
Right.
and you can like there's test armor you can fly around, or it's amazing that we both went to Marvel people, by the way.
Yeah, I had I just had the picture of the poker matches, or
Mhm.
matches, jeez, poker games. Just where the poker matches, the poker games. Him and Wolverine, and Nick Fury or whoever. I mean, I think like the Titans would have a good Super Bowl party.
Mhm, mhm.
They're all young. They all live
Beast
together. That'd be
Beast
fun.
Boy
Beast Boy.
Beast Boy would throw a good party.
Um, you
I,
don't really
I
want to go to Bruce Wayne's Super Bowl watch party.
I keep thinking of I'm going through my superhero Rolodex, and I keep thinking of people who would have bad parties. Like, no, you can't have that. Like, don't spill carpet. Don't spill something on the carpet at Bruce Banner's place.
Mm.
It's gonna go badly. Does Dick Grayson throw a good party?
I
feel like
feel
he
like
could.
he's a good guest. He's a thoughtful
Okay.
guest. Although
Okay.
maybe living with Barbara, maybe
That's
she's
what I'm
more
getting
like a
at.
host, and she's like, "Let's throw a Super Bowl party this year," and that's a good case study. So if we go back to his email to get the he says, who would be watching for the commercials, who would make the best dip, and who would ruin their night with too many bets and parlays. I feel like um
All right, bets and parlays
Jason Todd would make too many bets and ruin the night.
and Booster Gold.
And Booster Gold. Well,
Mhm,
I was thinking of the Bat family at Dick's house, but yes, Booster Gold would be that for
mhm.
sure. Who's watching only for the commercials? Like basically anyone who doesn't care about, you know.
A lot of nerds, I feel like Peter Parker would only watch for the commercials.
Yeah, I think a lot of the characters.
Yeah.
But
Uh,
yeah, and then who would make the dip? Let's see, who's a
are
good
there
chef?
any superhero characters who like their thing is that they like to cook? I
They're
could see,
always showing Ollie making chili. They just did that last week
I
on
think
Justice League.
Ollie could do it. Stick with me here. Wildcat. I think Wildcat makes excellent, maybe not dip, but also just party, great party snacks. I
The
could see that.
JSA might throw a nice Super Bowl party.
I think that's very possible. Yeah.
That
Well,
would be a fun
who
party.
throw a good part then? A good is it Johnny Thunder? Is he the one with the wizard?
Yeah. Well,
That
the
guy.
lightning bolt, yeah,
That guy.
for sure. I think the JSA on the other side of the aisle, and the Thing on the other side of the
You
aisle.
know who would throw a sexy Super Bowl party?
Uh-oh.
Zatanna.
Everything's
Sexy
a
Magic
is
Super Bowl.
sexy.
Yeah, I know.
I'm actually really looking forward to this next email. I think this is a good question. Let's talk about it. Let's do it. I just hit the wrong button. There we go. I missed my daughter's dance recital to think of this question. This is Patrick K from North Carolina. I missed my daughter's dance recital to think of this question, but I wonder why comics do a better job of hitting the nostalgia button than movies or TV shows. Many of the comics y'all review and gush over are the ones that have that gosh feel, and many of those books go back to the early years of their careers. Batman Year One is one of my favorite all-time Batman stories. However, movies and TV shows do remakes, especially Disney, with their upcoming schedule of making live-action adaptations of their classic animated films, and come out with mixed reviews. Yet comics do it, and it usually turns out great. So why is it that comics are so good at playing into nostalgia, but when movies and TV shows do it, it usually
It's a
is
lower
bad?
percentage. It's a
Yeah.
lower hit rate. I, I gotta say, I agreed with his premise when I thought about it, and I thought, well, that's a very interesting question. So right away, in real life, for example, the people age, and so it kind of doesn't work. It
That's what I
can.
thought too. I was thinking about it
Um,
earlier. I was trying to think of an idea because I was like, I don't. It's harder when you have, say, almost 80-year-old Harrison Ford running around looking like a Indiana Jones cosplayer,
mhm.
than when then Batman can be 33 forever. So right away, it's easy to do nostalgia when your characters don't age.
I think one of the other reasons too is that just like mainstream comic books, superhero comic books specifically, but also it's all built on itself. And so one of the great parts about like DC and Marvel is that there is a rich history that is, more or less a straight line from the very beginning. So if there's a part of it that you like, comics always have the chance of going back to that. And somebody else who likes it is doing that too. And so, it's always been part of that ongoing stories to bring up a thing that happened before in
Yep.
the story, and you can then ape that style, or you can make that style a little of that and a little bit modern, and it can give you that feeling again but also be new. but it's also so transient. Like you can't. I think you can't compare like a regular serial comic book with like a movie. They're not the same. Like you
No,
can
there's
get
a
in.
big difference between serialized storytelling and a movie or non-serialized TV show. Like, so I actually think soap operas do this as well as comics, but they're always, at least they were, they bring back older actors who played other characters. People come back to the show, but was what I'm saying, after decades playing the character they originally played, and that really taps into that nostalgia button in a way that you okay. So that's one thing. I think soap operas can do it, as comics do, but I also think, as you said, the nature of the comic story is to build on itself and be serialized. So it's always constantly talking to itself. When they do a live action Lion King or a live action any of those movies, it feels like a cash grab. Like, we've already got the movie. They're just doing the movie again. Comics don't remake themselves usually. They do sometimes.
It can be a cash grab kind of thing.
But it just feels like we already have the thing. We're doing the thing again. Whereas comics don't tend to. They have revisited characters, revisited storylines, revisited things, but they don't tend to redo a story from scratch. They do it sometimes. It happens rarely.
I tend to think of like the idea of style. We talk about this. This feels like a Silver Age comic. This has elements of a Golden Age comic. This has that. And I think that there's a way to do that with comic books that is like elegant and respectful. And it can be like a stunt, but it can also just be a thing that has been absorbed by the storytellers. And they're like, oh, I want to do something sort of in this style. And it's not super overt. I don't know. Like if you're watching, okay, so if you're watching a sitcom and they try to do a style like an I Love Lucy one, like it's very, very obvious.
It's a joke.
It's a joke. It's a one-time gag thing. Whereas comics builds on itself a lot. And you could do that. Like, we're gonna draw this whole thing like Jack Kirby just drew it. But then there's other guys who are like, that's their style. Guys who work today, their style is to do a Jack Kirby type of thing.
Right.
And you don't get that in like a TV show, or because nobody's shooting a show that's on regularly in the style of I Love Lucy, but you can go get a comic book series for 4 issues that looks like Avengers from the 60s, and people are going to read it and they'll buy it. And it doesn't feel out of place. It doesn't feel like another thing. It feels like it's part of the continuum.
It is interesting. It seems to be, I mean, even soap operas couldn't do that, right? They couldn't do an episode in black and white, featuring characters dressed like it's the 50s. It would be a joke, or it'd be a gag, or it'd be a dream sequence, but it wouldn't be an ongoing thing. They wouldn't do it for a week as an experiment, but comics would. So it is interesting. It's very unique in that sense. But it really, I think it does a lot to do with the serialized nature of the stories, and a lot to do with the fact that everyone reading and making them is constantly in dialogue with the old comics.
And everybody who started reading comic books has a soft spot for some point. And maybe it wasn't right when they started, maybe it was later, maybe it was the 90s. Like, comic book readers inherently have different eras as their soft spot. And you can enjoy stuff that goes after that, but there's always going to be a thing that tickles that, in a way that is organic, that is just like, it's part of it already. And so when it pops back up again, you go, oh, they're doing this kind of thing. It's because it's part of it. It's inherent to the form.
And I also think what you said at the beginning is that these are ageless characters, so you don't have to watch them becoming old and sad and decrepit, because actors do. But
like every once in a while, you'll read, like, there'll be an Avengers thing, and it'll be kind of a flashback, and you'll cut back to an 86 version of Hawkeye. And it's just like, oh, I'm in this now. It's fun for a while, and it can tie back to the story that's going on currently, or not. I don't know what I just did. That's shut up.
Who's talking to your phone?
Siri's telling me all about Clint Barton, and it won't shut up. It won't stop.
That's never happened in the history of the show.
It's still going.
Funny. That's very funny.
You may have noticed that the voice of Siri on my phone is a northern British woman.
All right. Well, I think this is a great question. We've never had this question
It's a
before, which
wonderful.
is
It's a
a
wonderful
rarity in
question.
the 20 years of doing the show. But uh, it's an interesting. It is interesting. Look, comics and movies can certainly do it. They do it all the time, but you're right. The hit rate's much lower because these things are delicate. And if you're doing a one-for-one remake of things, then you're dealing with the fans of the original, and then you're dealing with, the quality of the original, or all kinds of things that you just don't do in comics. Comics rarely do a straight-up remake. They just don't do that kind
There's
of
also
thing.
there's also just a general strength of comic books, and a feature of comic books is that you think of it, you do it, you make it, you put it out, you move
Yeah.
along. And so like there's a stream of, well, let's try this. Okay, let's do the next thing. Like it's always going, and it takes less time and effort than a lot of other things like
And
that.
think about when, and we'll wrap this up, but
Yeah.
when the first of the Ultimate books started getting back, like when they were going on for a long time, and they
Mhm.
started to remake stuff from the original continuity, that's when they hit a problem, right? Like
Mm.
when the X-Men books started, like they had no idea what to do with that book, and they started we'll just try to remake old stories. Didn't work. When they
Mm.
they tried to redo the Clone Saga, didn't work. That was the only time it didn't really work, was when they like were trying to, and even then they didn't do them one for one. You
Mhm.
just don't have remakes in comics. You don't have, when Dick Grayson became Batman the most recent time, he had done it previously in the 90s in totally different stories and totally different circumstances. They didn't remake that story for the 90s.
Mhm.
They remade the thematic elements of it, but comics don't remake stuff.
Mm.
So that's part of
That's
it's
true.
because it's always building. It's always building and on what came before, but it's never remaking, even when it revisits.
That's
If
really
that makes sense.
interesting. That
Yeah.
like you don't see like a remake of Red Sun that somebody did 20 years later, but they
Right.
just
You see
huh,
revisiting, you see
yeah.
let's revisit Batman's origin.
But it's
And
like
it's
later
essentially it's
in that
essentially it's a
story.
remake, but it's not beat for beat a remake. It's
Mhm.
not the elements might be the same, but the story around it will be different.
What's
Or
interesting is you can go back and pick up exactly where you left off no matter how much time has passed,
right.
which can happen in a movie, could happen in a TV show, but it's more seamless for whatever reason. Great
Good
question.
question.
You can go on.
Two good questions this week from Patrick and Greg. Thanks. They wrote in the contact at ifanboy.com. That's how you can get on the show, by writing in there. We want to hear from you. You're always welcome, and welcome part of the show. We always enjoy the email questions. You can also write into our Media Explode show by putting Media Explode in the subject line. Thank you very much. Now let's do some plugs. So 2 weeks ago, we had our Media Explode show talking about what we watched, saw, and enjoyed over the holiday break. Was that two? Yeah, that was 2 weeks ago. That seemed like it was just yesterday. In 2 more weeks, we're going to have our Media Explode for February in honor of Saturday Night Live's 50th anniversary episode, which happens that week. We're going to do a mock Saturday Night Live draft where Josh and Ron and I are going to draft the best Saturday Night Live cast we can come up with. It's going to be
Let me
fun.
walk your dog.
Oh, look
Come
for that
on,
in
let me
2
walk your
weeks.
dog.
In 3 weeks, we're going to have our Captain America Brave New World review. Someone's going to see it and someone's going to review it. Who that's going to be, we don't know, because everyone's begging out of it so far. And then in 4 weeks, Josh is going to have Talksplode. He's got an interview all lined up for you, for your ears. Maybe not your
Yeah.
eyes, but for your ears.
Yeah, that's
So you can
true.
find those shows. Those are our February shows coming out. And then our February hangout, if you're a patron, is going to be February 22nd. You can join before then. You'll get to come hang out with us and talk about nonsense and all kinds of stuff. And we'll have fun doing it. So check those out. Also, find our library of a whole crap load of shows. Someone took the number out of this week's episode. Over at ifanboy.com, wherever podcasts are sold, wherever podcasts are
Where the
sold.
podcast is sold, you can go down there. You can see Donnie, Brian, Mikey Sullivan. You know what I mean?
What is happening to me? Never miss a show. This show is a chronicle of our feelings on comics and a chronicle on our neurological degradation. And it's just happening every week. Like one day they'll be able to study this.
Yeah.
Never miss a show. Find out what the pick of the week is before the show comes up by following us at iFanboy Comics on Instagram and Threads, at ifanboy.com on Blue Sky, and individually, the only place you can find Josh and I online is on Instagram at CS Kilpatrick and JA Flanagan. I'll let you figure out which one's which. Use your detective skills.
This is why I always log in wrong. Please consider writing a review or leaving a star rating where you get podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, however it is that you do it. We appreciate that. If you're listening on Pocket Cast, you need to be subscribed and have downloaded few episodes before you can rate it. So, do that, please, if you can. Subscribe to youtube.com/iFanboy, where you can watch the video version of this show, as well as the special edition shows. And you can find archives of our old video show that we used to do, which was a very different kind of thing from a long time ago. From 2007 to 2012. I'll get better at technical directing this show. That was my experiment. I forgot about it a couple times. Finally, join us at the iFanboy After Show exclusively on Patreon, where we will share our thoughts on all the other books that came out this week that we didn't talk about. That's over at patreon.com/iFanboy for everyone at $10 a month or higher.
And thanks to everyone who's donated at dreamcenter.org. They are an on-the-ground organization here in Los Angeles helping provide relief for fire victims. We've donated as iFanboy. People have donated individually.
I did.
I did as well. Ryan did. So thank you. Any organization. It doesn't have to be Dream Center. It could be anyone who's helping with the fire victims. It's been really rough. So thank you all who've done so. We really appreciate it. And that is this week's show. It was the 5th week, and honestly, not as bad as I thought. I know we were a little bit more negative this week than normally.
We went longer than we have all month.
We went longer. We'd like to celebrate the comics, but 5th week sometimes holds our feet to the fire. We have no choice on the matter.
You got to bring it. What are you gonna do? You got to bring it.
We'll be back next week. Till then, I'm Connor.
I'm Josh.
See you then.
Bye-bye.